Yeah, love it, love it, love it. So why don't we just jump right into this and get from a St. Louis supporter's point of view the big news, right? After taking the team to the top of the Western Conference in their first ever season, a slow start has led to the dismissal of Bradley Carnell. He's been relieved of the position before the League's Cup break. Moussa, from this point of view that you have watching the team day in, day out, what are your thoughts and reactions to the move?
I, I was completely surprised when we got the news. It was like, I think probably majority of St. Louis was kind of surprised about it. My expectation, I thought maybe if we were still going down the losing path since we had 9 losing games, I thought maybe towards the end of the season, that's probably was going to most likely happen. But did not expect it this early. But as you start to kind of look at the stats and seeing the history from starting from the playoffs with the team I won't name beat us, and and then the losing streak and tying so many games, we knew that there was maybe some frictional things that may happen towards the end, but it was very early, and based on the presser that we heard with Lutz and the team, it sounds like they wanted to still keep the hope of playoffs since it's not completely gone. So it's just hearing those kind of helps you kind of think like, yes, maybe a change may be best for the team. But losing Carnell was like, it's one of, we only get one first season. So he's always will be that coach that brought St. Louis to, I guess, the one of the best historic season for MLS.
Yeah.
But I think it was a surprise. I think it was those unfortunate firing that probably you had to do based on the result, but not really based on what he brought to the team itself. Because I would think that most players, even based on the presser that we're having, all of the first thing the players were saying was a thank you to the coach first, and have not heard anything really negative about him or anything like that. So I think it was just the part of the business that no one wants to talk about. And the team has some ambitions to continue what they've done before. It's just victim of his own success, I think, and injuries, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and that's actually where I'll just pick up because that's kind of my big focus here, and then I'll send it over to Connor. Is I was shocked by this. I mean, we spoke about it before. I'm a Red Bull supporter for anybody new here, so I've seen Carnell as an interim over at Red Bull, and everything you mentioned about being a player's coach and people appreciating him and respecting him, spot on. And I think they were also shocked in Red Bull when he was let go and not brought back. So all of that, but you hit on the one that I'm kind of going to focus on here, and that's the injuries, right? So I think we all knew St. Louis probably overperformed a little bit last season, but we all came in, even when we were doing our not so deep dives, and said, yeah, this team is going to be at least top four. They might not win it again, but they brought back the same group and
Yep.
they've added pieces, like they'll be fine. And then you've got Edward Leuven, who's out for 9 games with injuries and some personal stuff. Klaus is now down for a little bit. Ostrock's been out. Pompeyu's now out. Alm's going to be out long term. Like when we do at the end of our season, we go and look at all the other teams and say what went wrong for this team. 9 times out of 10, those teams, what the 1A, a lot of their big players got hurt and they couldn't replace them. And that seems like it seems like a tough little knock there for being put in that situation where I think he probably could have gotten out of it if he had the players back. It's one of those things that you got to kind of weigh out. And you mentioned the ambition, and I like the ambition, but is it too ambitious? That's a thought here. Connor, your thoughts on that?
I think it's crazy. I don't get it, man. Like he overachieved so much last season with St. Louis. Like, and I don't mean that to say that they didn't deserve to finish where they did, but a lot of us, myself and Andrew included, had very low expectations for St. Louis coming in, and to be top of the West was an incredible achievement. And I don't even think the team has been like too bad this year. I mean, I'm looking at the standings just in general, and I see a team that has only 7 losses on the year, 10 draws. So a lot of stuff kind of like very close, it seems. Like 7 losses is like playoff form. Like the majority of the teams that have 7 losses are in the playoffs. They're just struggling to find ways to win games with only 4 wins, and their expected goal difference has them sixth in the table versus 12th where they are right now. So it just feels like certain things haven't bounced the right way. So that's why I'm very surprised to see them move on from Carnell so quickly. I feel like he earned a bit more time based on how he did last year, at least, to turn things around. And considering how many teams make the playoffs, it's very easy and capable at this point in the year to be 12th and still get into the playoffs and have a shot. I mean, look at team who shall not be named from last year. They made a late run, got into the playing game, and you just win a couple of games in a row, you get hot, and all of a sudden you're a huge threat in MLS Cup playoffs. So I'm very surprised to see the move come.
Yeah, and I think there was also the part that we saw some of our best players were not performing like they did last year as well. And I think that's probably why we saw Jackson also now going to Columbus. Klaus was not scoring as much before he got injured. So I think that also played in part. And I think there's a lot probably that we don't know about in behind the scenes that maybe added or contributed to it. We saw that there was a few frictions with Sam and Enren and some other players that like Durham that just never played for St. Louis and then went back to I believe Ireland. So it's looks like there's other than like the performance, the injuries, and too many ties. There's maybe additional things that may have stayed within the team that we don't know. But yes, it's one of those things where maybe in MLS is not seen as much when a coach is dismissed this early. But in part of in other places, once you're starting to see those stats going down, coaches typically are fired maybe towards the end of the season, even though they've had a good plan or a run. For me, it's like my Chelsea team, we're doing very bad at the very beginning of the season and things started to get a little bit better. And then they started to get more players, but then Coutinho is still out at the end of the season. So it's one of those things where it's like, yes, the business of soccer is brutal at times.
Connor, you know anything about that?
Andrew, you pick great guests, Andrew. This feels like it's not the first time we've had another Chelsea fan on the show before.
Hey, why not?
I'm just looking out for you, Connor. You know that's all. All I do is look out.
Are you a Chelsea fan?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Oh, that's why he's so great, Connor. Greatest person on the planet.
It's funny. So I also noted down this disagreement with Adeniran, but that seems like something where you probably could have maybe moved him on and that resolves itself if Carnell is still the guy that you want to be there, because there was I believe there were either offers for him or people were just kind of thinking about inquiring about him.
They are, and they're still going on now.
Yeah. So they're
I think it's just that the Klaus injury may have contributed as who else do we have as our best forwards? And he contributed more last year as well. Mm-hmm. So it's like, do you really want to move on from all of those goals already? Even though we, last year we transferred almost 25 goals from the players that left last year. So it seems like almost the perfect storm for the sophomore year where you typically want to have your base players perform like they did last year. And that's where people had us rank, between 4 and 6. If those same players have performed as they did, but then you add injuries, and I guess fans also don't like to wait too much because, it's one of those things where it's like, while Carnell is gone now, but a lot of fans are like, oh, maybe that was too early. But there was also some that were calling Carnell out now. So it's like, which one do you want to go with?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the thing and this will kind of segue into our next little talking point here is this feels very similar to Ziggy Schmidt in Seattle way back in 2016 when you've got a team that needs some reinforcements. The coach isn't getting the job done with what they've got, but you've got 2 guys sitting on the back burner ready to come in the start of the transfer window in July. And instead of waiting to see them come in, out goes the coach. So it's, you've got all these injuries, you're bringing in replacements to help them, and the coach is leaving before he gets a chance to use them, right? That was Ziggy Schmidt to Brian Schmetzer in Seattle with Nico Ladero. And now it is Bradley Carnell in St. Louis for replacement to be named with somebody like Marcel Hartel on a DP contract. So a designated player, central midfielder from Germany, looking to balance the play. Thoughts on the new additions? How do you think he's going to help the team? Are you excited for him? I mean, my personal, I'm excited to see him play. But thoughts on the inner St. Louis circle there?
So there's a lot of excitement about him. I think I've saw just a few of his game in highlights, and as we all know, highlights are sometimes misleading. But what we've seen most is the moment the move was confirmed, there was a lot of the German media and a lot of fans were very upset of his move to St. Louis because he was a high scoring player and his team was moving to the first the Bundesliga. So it looks like it's one of those players where the fan base did not want him to move so fast. So that kind of put a little bit of the excitement knowing that there's a player that is still regarded as a big midfielder goal scorer coming to St. Louis. He has a lot of connections within some of the players like Clouds. They play together. A lot of the German-based players knowing well. So for me, it's the excitement to see a new face that has the pedigree of the Leuven and Klaus. So I'm a little bit on the wait and see to the point to how well he will adapt to MLS. Because from what I'm seeing, some of our European players takes a little bit of time, but he leading scorer for German 2 leagues and taking his lead team to the first. Quite exciting. It's just now, hopefully, he will come back within July 15th or so and see how things go. But we need all the help we can.
Yeah. Connor, what about you? What are your thoughts on this move from an outsider's point of view?
I saw stuff about it, I think, at first on Twitter. And as we know, obviously, people have great takes only on Twitter. Only the most intelligent takes on there. But of course, there were some people complaining about it because all they saw with the tag was coming from the second Bundesliga. And then they see designated player, which I can understand to some perspective. Like if you're bringing in a player who's like mid-table second Bundesliga as a designated player, it could be a little bit disappointing. And especially when you see like Inter Miami going and bringing Messi over and everything. But this is a perfect signing for St. Louis, in my opinion. I mean, he fits their identity perfectly with the Bundesliga players coming over. It worked so well for them last year. Someone who contributed off the charts for St. Pauli last year with 29 goal contributions, helping to lead the team to win the second Bundesliga. And it's not the first time he's had to do that either. He did it with our Arminia as well a few years back, winning the second Bundesliga, getting them to the Bundesliga and actually playing a pretty significant amount of minutes in the Bundesliga as well. So he's got experience at the top flight and he's coming off the best year of his career. You're getting a person in form. He should hopefully seamlessly fit in the team. I think it's a perfect signing for them, especially if they have the opportunity to maybe even and I don't know if this has been released yet or not, but if they have the ability to buy him down later on, that's even better.
I'm sure there's probably always those type of talks because I think a lot of those DPs, once they started to stay in the league and then maybe their green cards or all of that kind of add to that to being able to buy them down so we can kind of build up with more players. From what I can tell is that it's a player that's still going up on his skills and happiness. So it's not like he's looking for retirement. So I think that's kind of those things where it's like, hey, I'm going to go play with my friends, which makes it very good for us because if you're excited, it always shows on the field. And he's all smiles. We saw him. He's already training with the team now. He flew to Colorado with them. So it looks like the integration is very easy. Taking a whole bunch of pictures with the players already. So it looks like the character that St. Louis looks at first. If you look at some of the interviews, they always look for the player's character even before the skill levels. So it definitely helps with the character. So hey, I'm all for smiling players because that's when they're fun to watch.
Absolutely, yeah. I did recruitment at Alfred for 2 years, and it was very, very much a big part of what we looked for was person first, because your skills can be great, but if the guys don't like you, you're going to have a tough time here. So
Ain't gonna pass the ball.
Yep. Yeah. And, again, kind of to bring all of your thoughts together, right? Like 28 years old, two different promotions, captain of the last one, this mentality of winning at all costs. It's just what the team needs. We talk about it a lot when we talk about teams that are underperforming and what they kind of need to turn things around, and not to get to our last point here a little too soon. But, the mindset of like, we're just going to get stuck in. We're going to do the dirty work. We're going to do the hard work to get ourselves back where we need to be. Then we can start working on the little things. But having somebody to come in and bring that mentality with them is going to be very, very important. And getting them on a free is a good bit of business too, right? Not paying too much of a transfer fee there. Still in the prime of career, like you mentioned, where he's going to come in and want to play at a high level and perform well. And as you mentioned, 17 goals and 13 assists in the season as a central midfielder. Multiple seasons with double-digit goal contributions. He's going to be able to play provider. Maybe have somebody like Najee Bloom behind him, cleaning up the mess. Like Lovin playing as that linking player. Like what hurts me here is I don't know where Jose Kajima is going to fit in, because that dude is like my favorite new player in this league, and I don't know where he's going to fit in just yet. And I really hope they find a way to get all four of them on the field, because that dude's been very, very good this year.
Yeah, I'm wondering for him if since we lost Celio, he might be one of those replacement individual to kind of like a double pivot to change. So when you have Leuven is probably wanted to be more creative than to do the defensive work. So that'll be kind of a Kajima and Bloom as the defensive, we'll say defensive midfield for a bit, and then after that you just have Leuven just do his thing in the midfield. So I think, and he pretty much will play anywhere you put him except goalie, which he probably will play goalie if you ask Kajima to do so as well. So I'm not too worried about him. But yes, he's also one of St. Louis' favorite players too. I think he was probably one of those college players that I'm the most surprised from my short time watching, the MLS and the draft. I think he's probably one of those most surprising to me, how he's been able to be the part of the faces of MLS teams so quickly.
Yeah, well, not to go too far down that rabbit hole, but one of the things that I loved about it was, as a fellow soccer nerd myself, he's really big into understanding tactical setups and the way that the game is supposed to be played at all different sorts of level. I think he's in his coaching badges now, and that sort of mental state is really, really interesting to see in somebody coming out of college, because that's not usually what a college player does, right? You have guys who are really great athletes. You have guys who are really technical on the ball. You have guys who are very, very intelligent, but to put everything together and to really buy into the mentality side of it, where tactics come into play, was very, very interesting. So really excited to see how he'll develop over the last couple games here and then into his second year. But over those last couple of games, this team sits 12th in the West. How is this team going to make the playoffs this year? And I'll send it over to you, Moussa, for your thoughts on what they need to do to get into the playoffs.
I guess no pressure to them, but this game is probably one of the most important one they will have to show what they're capable of at this moment. It's the second time against Colorado, so they beat us 3-0, if I'm correct. So I think this will be definitely a testament to see how well the team is gelling. San Jose it's almost an outlier because they're the very last one, and it was at City Park. So I'm really looking to see how the team handles now. Hey, we just signed one of our CD2 left back, Jaden Reed, to a contract too. So it's like hopefully we have a left back secure now for quite a while. So I'm looking very optimistic, knowing that 3 of our CD2 guys are playing with the team and they have something to prove. Just like you mentioned, the go-getter and wanted to show some. And there's the new coach, Push, even though he's not really new coach, but he's just interim. I guess we'll just call him the new interim coach, but yeah. He literally knows every players, and some of them are handpicked. So this will be the testament to see if we have the new coach bounce.
Yeah.
And how those kids can show.
Yeah. Big ups Jaden Reed. I don't know what happened, but he didn't pan out over at Red Bull. And it's really good to see him get his feet under him and succeed, because even if he doesn't, he's still got that Red Bull connection. So big ups to him. And actually a buddy of mine back at Alfred played with him as he was growing up. So we have a little personal connection. I have a little personal connection, twice removed or whatever. But it's always good to see friends who are, not really MLS fans who are sending me stuff like, oh, look where my buddy's doing. Look what my buddy's doing. I'm like, great, man. Keep following. Like, that's all we need. I want you to get involved. So that's
how we go to sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Connor, how's this team making the playoffs?
Well, that's the lovely thing about this current MLS playoff system. And I know a lot of people hate it, but this pretty much has kept every team in it outside of San Jose. So, it's St. Louis is not far out from getting into at least a play-in game, let alone just like straight into the playoffs. And it's not impossible to get hot at the right time and make a run and get in. I think in terms of the attack, I like what they have going forward. I mean, obviously, almost every team can improve in some way, shape, or form, but considering the circumstances, I like what they've got going forward. Adding in Hartel, I think if you were to make any other changes, maybe in the defense. I mean, I know last season the team finished very well, but that was probably like the one area where you could kind of point to somewhere where they could improve was defensively last season. Not that they were terrible, but obviously hard to improve when you score 62 goals in the year. But it seems like maybe defensively there's a little bit of issues there, considering it looked like, I know Berkey has a low save percentage, but our favorite, we have a favorite goalkeeper stat on this show, PSXG plus minus. It's like, it's a statistic where it kind of like singles out the goalie's contribution without the impact or much less of the impact of the players in front of them, kind of like singling out their single performance. And Berkey's still putting up a really strong PSXG this season. So it feels like maybe the defense has been letting them down a bit at times. And I don't think St. Louis has been terrible defensively, but if there's one area to maybe improve, it's in that regard. I'm not exactly sure how they'll go about it, but I mean, I think there's plenty of talent still left in this team for them to make a run and get in the playoffs. So I would say probably just go forward with what you have right now and see how Hartel kind of slides into the team and kind of play it from there. But yeah, I mean, St. Louis is definitely still in this fight, like no question about it.
Yeah, and I think for the defense, the surprising part for us is that, like we say, Jason Reed playing, Jaden, playing in left back, and then we also have Wetzel, German national too, that also plays center back, and he also got signed to a contract. So there's still that youth on there. I think they were just in City 2 to kind of get them, to playing time, getting used to the new system. And they've performed pretty well for us, the recent games. And Nielsen gets injured, so that's kind of like a revolving door. Parker also, it looks like he's like the wall for there, but still need a little bit more of a athletic players. And that's where Reed and Wenzel kind of come into play to kind of cover some of the speed that we lack of. Berkey, we all know that if we didn't have Berkey last season, would have not have happened, and this season probably would have been a lot worse. So, he's pretty much the one that held it for City in general. We're lucky.
Yeah. For me, as outside of what I've already mentioned before with the mentality side of it, they got to start scoring, right? And we've talked about that a little bit, but that's why I really like the Hartel signing, because one, he's done that, but they've also brought in, and we haven't really touched on it much, but Cedric Touchert is also coming in as an attacking player for St. Louis. So you're going to have those sorts of reinforcements, and that's kind of what we were alluding at earlier in the segment, where like, yeah, you got two players in the wings, but we talk about Hartel. Touchert's also coming in, and we haven't given him a lot of love there, and that's okay. We kind of covered him a little bit there, and I'm sure we'll get to see a lot of him in the near future. But on 29 goals to this point, it is the joint second worst in the West this year. you don't find success unless you're scoring goals, right? And secondly, to me, you got to find a way to win on the road, right? You don't win on the road, you don't make the playoffs. So I went back just a couple years, of history here, and all you need is 2 away wins, especially in the setup that we have now, and that is the lowest that teams have made it with road wins. But if you win 1 or you win 0, most of the time you're not making that playoff. So you have to start winning on the road. You don't have a lot of home games left, right? So or away games left, excuse me. You have to find a way to be a bit more resilient on the road. Those are kind of my 3 things: mentality, scoring, and winning on the road. If you can put, and it doesn't have to be like you have to fix it right now, but if you can get on some sort of run by combining those 3 at the very end of the season, you give yourself your best shot. So that'd be real interesting to see how the new caretaker manager can handle that.
Yeah, and I think for him, like I said, he knows a lot of the players. Like Vasilev, Watts, all of these players he's known since their IMG Academy days. He had a lot of hands on picking some of those players. So I think even though he has the interim title on there, a lot of those players he knows because he was also director of coaching. So I think it's just a question of maybe having a different view for the players, and maybe kind of firing a coach typically will then motivate other players that typically do not get time on the field to kind of for them to show what they have. So hopefully that will be that one push that says, hey, we have a new coach, in quotes, let's see what we can run with. And that may help. So I think maybe that was the hope, to have that new coach push. For me, feels pretty good. Knowing that we're going to Colorado, we've played them already. They played almost the same style of high pressure or Red Bull style. So we'll see who's come off the gate and show it.
Love it. This is going out on Monday, so it'll be after the game, but we're recording it. We're recording at 3:36 p.m. before the game, Eastern time. Why don't you put your prediction out there? How's this game going to go tonight?
Oh, so luckily I have not put mine yet, but I'm expecting, I think my score was, 2-1 St. Louis.
All right. I like it. We'll have to see. Our predictions were out. I'll read them off because we've done them already. Let's go and find them really quick. There they are. We've got. Oh, we're gonna sound pretty bad here. I've got a 3-1 Colorado win. Connor's got a 2-0 Colorado win. We think probably playing at the altitude, I think, is probably where our mindset's going, and not anything about St. Louis, right? We're not going to talk bad about them when we do this. But hey, listen, we finish this segment. We're going to move on later to some other stuff. But Moussa, I know you got some stuff to do, so I want to let you take some time here. Thank you so much for being with us and breaking this down with us. We really enjoyed having a proper point of view of some of these takes. We come on here every week and talk news, but it's just our outsider view. So it's really nice to have somebody who's on the inside and really can react to this from a personal point of view. We'd love to give you some time to let them know some projects you're doing, where to find you online, so that we can send some of our fans your way.
So I think on Twitter it is Moussa Seca 17, and my main page is MoFutbolTV, where I not only speak for St. Louis City, but also City 2. And also I do cover local soccer from NPSL all the way down to the semi-pro teams. And the biggest project now is that we'll be starting in August, the St. Louis High School Champions League, where we'll be having the best high school teams compete on the Champions League-like tournament. So they will be able to call themselves the best high school soccer team in St. Louis. The boys will be this year. The girls are starting next year. So that'll be a big one. And also I will be in Tampa at the end of the month to watch the Tampa Rowdies versus Battery. And I will be recording there the game, and there will be a coaches panel as well. So there'll be some very exciting content coming from Tampa towards the end of the month.
Love it. And we talked about it a little bit before we recorded, but that high school Champions League, excuse me, sounds phenomenal. So,
Yes.
again, want to thank you so much for being here. Everybody go head on over there and take a look at some of the good stuff that he's doing over there. And we will see you in our next segment.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.